Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the November 20th, 2024 meeting of the Lanai Planning Commission. Let the record show that we do have quorum. So we have Aaron Atakador on camera. Aaron, anybody in the room with you?
Good evening, Chair. I'm alone.
Okay, thank you. We also have Commissioner Alboro. Nikki, anybody else in the room with you?
No, I'm alone.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Grove, anyone else in the room with you?
No, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Kay, anyone else in the room with you?
No, I'm alone.
All right. And Commissioner Fujie Kaamo, first time I say your full married name. So is there anyone else in the room with you?
No, nobody else is here.
Okay, and I too am alone. So we do have quorum. So at this time, if there are no objections, here we go. Sandy, she's on camera, and anyone else in the room with you?
Yes, my son, Kyle Marita.
All right, starting them young, good. So, if there are no objections, I will turn over the meeting to our Vice Chair, Nikki Alboro, to run tonight's meeting. All right, hearing and seeing none, it's all yours, Nikki.
All right, so everyone just bear with me. First meeting, but I guess we'll go over the housekeeping rules first. All Planning Commission members must be on video. All votes must be done by a show of hands, and asked to speak, don't rely on raising your hand. For public testimony, all testifiers to sign up with Leilani in the chat, please state your name and agenda item you'd like to testify on. Mute your audio and your video until you're called to testify, and your testimony must be limited to 3 minutes. Let's see here. So our first agenda item is the public hearing for the initiation of a bill for ordinance amending Chapter 19.36B off-street parking and loading Maui County Code to accommodate parking reductions in a specific portion of Lanai City. Has everybody had a chance to review the document that was sent to us? Do I need to read it again? Anybody? Everybody okay?
Yes.
So, basically, I guess if I'm correct, we'll open it up for anybody, public testimony on this agenda item. Leilani, anybody signed up?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Hold on. There is someone. Kiki Pua.
Okay, Kiki Pua.
Aloha, Commissioners. There you are, you're on this one. Aloha, Lanai would like to strongly support this initiative. We are thankful that the Commissioners brought it to the Planning Department's attention, and we look forward to a vote to pass this today. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Leilani, anyone else?
Double check. Thank you. That's it for online listing. Thank you.
And Roxanne, anybody signed up at the district office? I can't hear Roxanne. Can anybody hear her? Sorry. All right, I see it in the chat, so nobody here. So basically, the agenda item is to propose for a public hearing. So does anybody want a move or motion recommendations?
I think, Nikki, I wonder if Greg or the staff planner wants to add anything. Or
Yes,
do-
thank you, Chair, members of the commission. My name is Greg Post. I don't have anything to add. If you've read over the correspondence, this is really the first step in the code amendment process. You remember you spoke about this issue actually at 3 prior meetings. What this is tonight is just to initiate the process or initiate the amendment. If the commission decides to move forward with this, then I would just need a majority vote to initiate this amendment. And then we would come back and tentatively scheduled for your next meeting on December 18th, I believe it was. Yes, December 18th, where we would actually bring the formal code amendment. I'll give a presentation on it. And then if the commission votes to move the code amendment forward, then my next step would be to take that to council. And if it gets adopted, then we implement it. So that's all I have to offer. So really tonight, all that we're looking for is a majority vote to initiate the process. And then I'll see you again on December 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Do I have anybody like to move?
So moved.
Moved by Lisa. Can you need a second? Aaron, second?
Yeah, I'll second. I think Sally also is chiming in.
Okay,
her
sorry.
eye, but both of us, I think, are willing to second it.
Okay. So it was moved by Lisa, seconded by Sally, that we voted to initiate the code amendment to Maui County Code, Chapter 19.36, exempting use within Dole Park block for providing parking. So it'll be brought up at our next meeting on December 18th for the public hearing. Let's see here, and then we'll move on to communications, possible topics for future Lanai Planning Commission training and discussions. At this point,
hold on, Nikki.
I think we have to vote.
I think we have to have discussion by the commissioners before
I'm sorry.
vote on the motion.
So open it up for discussion for agenda item 1. Correct? Anybody?
Hold on a second here.
Or am I think I'm supposed to ask like all in favor and we all raise our hand for a majority vote. I think that's what I missed. Or
Correct. Yeah, we need a vote on the motion if there are no comments or questions by the commissioners.
okay.
Can I make one quick comment? I just want to mahalo Sally Kay for bringing this issue to our attention. We all knew it was out there, but we didn't know that there was a mechanism for fixing it. So I just want to say thanks for bringing your mana'o to this.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else? Any comments, questions? Nope. All right. So again, it was moved by Lisa, seconded by Sally. Can I get a show of hands, all in favor of initiating the code? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is 5, 6? All right. Unanimous vote. Everybody's in favor. Motion passes, I guess. And then let's see here, second. So we're going to move on to communications, possible topics for future Lanai Planning Commission training. I'm actually going to yield myself right now at this point and then turn it over to Butch so he can kind of give a background on this agenda item. The floor is yours, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. I asked Leilani to send 2 documents to you, and these documents were shared with Anna and Danny, Selena, and Nikki, and myself when we had a pre-meeting discussion. And this proposal basically mirrors what we did back in 2004, 5, and 6. And thanks to Sally, who went into the archives and found, what we did back then. So the whole idea behind this proposal, and it's a proposal at this point, is for the commissioners just to sit down and talk story about things that may be important to our community and to our island. And this way it's kind of a free-flowing discussion. And so in the documents that were sent to you, there were some possible topics of discussion. And as you can see, back in 04, 5, and 6, there are a lot of different topics. And this proposal is not intended to cover all of them, but just provide an opportunity for us to talk story freely without having to worry about meeting certain deadlines and certain criteria. We're not going to be voting on anything. Again, this, the Planning Commission, we basically react to what comes before us. If we go ahead with this proposal, we're actually doing some planning discussions. So that's in a nutshell what this proposal is about.
And hi there. I'm just going to chime in here real fast, Chair Jima. This is Selena Pinnell from Corporation Counsel. So I unfortunately had not quite taken a look at this, well, at least this first memo. I know you had a meeting with Danny and Anna prior, when I was out, and then I met them briefly after. You and I have not actually had a chance to speak about it. But there are some concerns, just legally speaking, with what is proposed in this first page of this memo. The first being that Lanai Planning Commission is a governmental commission, and it is regulated by certain rules and scope of authority, and it's always subject to the Sunshine Law. Regardless of whether voting would take place. That was mentioned in the last paragraph of this memo. Every minute of every day, this commission is bound by the Sunshine Law as well as its scope of authority, and so. I would ask, I think what would be great is if what I do every year for a lot of boards and commissions, they usually request it to put it on the agenda, but is a training on scope of authority, Sunshine Law, and ethics. And it's just kind of like a refresher because there's oftentimes new commissioners and new board members and whatnot. And so I think that may be helpful for everyone to just be refreshed on those principles and what we are bound by legally here. If you would consider putting that on the agenda for the next meeting, and perhaps putting this off until that presentation or can take place.
So you would suggest a training in lieu of the annual training?
Is the annual training already scheduled?
What is that?
I had went. Yes, perhaps an additional training. I mean, I was not aware that the annual training had already been scheduled for next year, or.
I believe it's scheduled after March when the new commissioners come on board.
Okay, so that's fine. Well, I just am not sure how best to proceed. And again, I apologize we didn't have a chance to just speak one-on-one. I had not quite understood what the mission, I suppose, of what the agenda item was until reading this first page memo and realizing that there were some pretty serious issues. nothing can be discussed ever between you all without it being public. I mean, there are executive sessions, but they are very heavily, regulated. There's 8 very specific exceptions to when you folks can meet and discuss issues relating to this commission outside of the public eye. The purpose of the Sunshine Law is to open up governmental proceedings, to allow participation, from the public. So very limited exceptions to when you folks can meet and discuss this stuff in private. Everything has to be agendized. Everything has to be open to public testimony. And so, you and I can just speak directly after, and it doesn't have to be the formal presentation. I'll leave that up to the commissioners, but what's suggested now, I think there are some legal issues with. We would not be able to do it as suggested now.
Okay, I mean, I have no problem with that, especially since historically it's fit into a regular LPC meeting. So if we set the agenda, say we're going to be talking about A, B, C, D, and E, then we're good to go.
Yes, and I think as long as, there is a scope of authority issue in terms of this isn't just a general, community meeting, so to speak, to discuss, all the issues of Lanai. It is, does have a specific purpose and scope of authority, what you folks are doing here. I think that some of these topics can certainly be related to some of the things that are in your scope of authority and could be acceptable. I guess we would just have to take that as we go. In terms of scope of authority. But definitely everything has to be done in public at a regularly agendized meeting.
But if we're not taking any action and there's no bill or ordinance or an application before us, what prevents us from, say, talking about population growth on Lanai and our island's ability to handle a 200% growth in population?
And that may be a very worthy topic of discussion, but perhaps again just outside of the scope of what this commission's purpose is. And I guess to speak to more generally, there can be ethical concerns. So let's say you talk here, you agendize talking about population control, and you speak about how how you don't like it, right? And then or whatever it may be. Then the following month there is an application for a new subdivision or development, and you all vote to deny that. Then there could be an ethical concern. It's best to stay out of you're not supposed to discuss things together that could even potentially come in front of you as commissioners outside of the public eye. You don't want your decisions to ever be questioned or invalidated because of perceived bias. Again, this is a very specific type of commission. There are other means and ways to have community discussions about these topics, but this may not be the proper venue for those kind of big, broad discussions, because it may impact your ability to do the specific tasks that you need to. Not ability, but questions again of ethical considerations.
But did you see the 04, 05, 06 agenda items?
I can't speak to the law of, nearly 20 years ago. I was not a practicing attorney then, and certainly not in this area. I don't know if it was either not proper back then and no one caught it or said anything, or perhaps the law has changed and become more strict. I have not done any research onto what the Sunshine Law, the state of the Sunshine Law, 20 years ago. But now I can tell you what it is, and I do have those concerns.
I have a question then. So if these are very specific topics to discuss, but they somehow tie into the community plan, is a portion of the community plan, sections 1 through 3, we're gonna be on the agenda item today, and it may cover the water, it may cover tourism, it may cover the carry capacity and it not specifically be agendas like this?
Yeah, I think if it's, kept broad enough and again, just all in the public eye, properly agendized, open to public testimony, I think that it could be okay. I just want you folks to be careful because I don't want you to violate any laws.
Well, yeah, I mean, we appreciate your guidance, and I definitely want to stay in it too. But it was just a little bit of it's specific, but I mean, if it does tie into the community plan, then like a community plan training refresher, or just whatever. I mean, we're all pretty new members, and the community plan is a massive file, so I'm not sure if that would somehow come up into like a discussion or a training. Like, what would you word it?
Yeah, it can be a discussion or a training. A training, maybe that you have someone from the, outside community or, from a different organization come and give sort of a training, so to speak. Those things can be agendized. It doesn't have to be, a vote or you can sort of talk story, so to speak. Again, just has to be properly agendized, has to be open to the public, and also has to be within the scope of authority of the commission. And
so based off these agenda items, do you see it in our scope of authority in the community plan?
I'm sort of just wrapping my head around it, to be honest, and because I don't think I quite understood what the idea was until now. So I'd have to get back to you, and I certainly can, but I just want to give that general cautionary statement now because I do see some issues. If you perhaps want to maybe just defer this to the next meeting, I can kind of look into it again, because or further rather, because again, I'm just sort of understanding what the intent was now.
I think Chair had a question.
Yeah, I'd just like to hear how other commissioners feel in terms of, whether we can talk about some of these things, how important or maybe it's not important to other commissioners on some of these topics. So I'd like to hear how everybody else feels.
Chair, if I may. So I reviewed this, I guess, is more of training versus a discussion. And I think all of these topics are worth a refresher and learning more, and yeah, having a course or just information, someone available to answer any questions that we have on it. And on all of the topics that were listed there, I think that each of them, because we may, in just my opinion, like I may think that I don't have any questions, but maybe I don't completely understand part of the community plan or part of the section, like how Nikki was mentioning. So I think that visiting all of these topics is worth our while. But in my opinion, it would be more of, I guess, a training format than a discussion format, just with the ability to ask questions. And if it does turn into a discussion, that's fine, but set up in a way that it is more of a training format, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I agree. Anyone else?
If I could speak for a second, I also agree. And I think there's some things that we've talked about in the past that need to be discussed further. Nikki, when we got that map of the sea level rise and you quickly pointed out what would happen to Manila, and most of the sort of takeaways from the county was that Maui's pretty okay because of where people live and so on and so forth, but it could have a huge impact on Manila. And we made a commitment to put a pin in that and go back and have a conversation. I don't know what the venue is for having those kinds of conversations, but it feels like it's our responsibility to do so.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. Sally, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there that in the past, that's exactly what you guys are all talking about is what we did. Nikki would have something she's concerned about. Erin would have something she's concerned about. At the end of the meeting, when the chair asks for agenda items for the next meeting, that's when we would say, you know what, we really need to learn more about the flooding that's possible at Manelli. And then the planning department would schedule someone who's an expert in that area and they would show up at the next meeting. And so we'd knock off these topics one by one. Everybody's going to have a different, well, maybe everyone would have a different concern, but that was the time when we would bring up what we wanted to see dealt with. And we would get a training and then we would have a discussion. It didn't require a vote, but that's how we educated ourselves. So that's one way to proceed.
Thank you, Sally. Anyone else? Any other commissioners? No. So Selena, what's your recommendation on to I guess move forward on this? Is it a discussion with chair?
Yeah,
First?
and the way it's agendized today, is it's just under communication. So, and that's what we're doing, just talking about it. So, I think that again, my main concern of this point is just to make sure that everybody knows we can't do anything outside of these meetings, right? That everything that is going to be discussed has to be agendized. And as each of these topics come up or certain things are placed on the agenda as actual trainings for people coming to speak, and I see any issues with those, I will certainly bring it to your attention then. So that's all I have to say on it. I don't think there's any vote to be had here or anything like that. And as you all move forward and put these different items on the agenda, I can, keep my eye on it and let you know if I see any legal objections. But for today, that's all I have.
Okay, appreciate it. Chair, I see you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very strongly about this, very passionate about this, especially because we've done it before. And I acknowledge what you said, Selena, that rules may have changed, and I understand your role as Corp Counsel. At the same time, I've mentioned at numerous meetings, it's important for us to be able to make informed decisions. And if we're not informed, then it's hard to make a good decision. And by discussing a variety of these topics, I think leads to a more informed Lanai Planning Commission. We can, and then what you said earlier, that you fear that what we may talk about may come up in a future meeting that might be a conflict. Well, we can't predict what's going to come in the future. And because we can't predict that, that shouldn't nullify what we find important to us in our community.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you.
I have a strong, very, very strong bias about water and how historically the applicant and the planning department, I think, has done a poor job presenting information to the planning commission so we can make an informed decision regarding an application or a change in an ordinance. And so one of the things that I'd like to see come out of this kind of talk story is, if the commissioners feel it's appropriate, to have later on a specific water workshop so that we can all become more informed. Fortunately, Sally and I have had a lot of history with water, so we bring that to the commission. but the other commissioners haven't.
Sure, I understand what you're saying, and I'll point out first that even this old agenda that was attached, it is in fact an agenda, right? Which means it was a public meeting that was properly noticed and was open to the public for viewing and participation and comment. So that again is just my primary concern. The first thing that rings a bell in your memo proposal is that these would be done in private or not subject to the Sunshine Law, and that's what can't happen. Again, even this old agenda, it is an agenda. So whatever happens, anything that this commission needs to do does have to be agendized, public, and open to the public. And then as far as a workshop on, water, I think, again, let's take that as it comes. If you do have speakers and you do want to put them on the agenda, then I can look into that more thoroughly if it's in, perhaps the scope of authority or has something to do with a permit that you folks are reviewing. Totally get your, passion about your community and everything. It's just that the scope of this commission is limited. It's not the community meeting. It is a governmental body. And so we do have to follow the rules. Again, I think for now, as long as you understand everything has to be in public, then we can take it as we go from here in terms of what presentations or workshops you'd like to put on the agenda in the future. Just be a way to move on from it for today.
All right, Chair.
Yes.
So, Selena, you've mentioned several times scope of authority, and that seems I interpret that to be a very limiting type of statement. Could you give us I guess a Reader's Digest version of
Yeah, I
the
can.
limitations on our authority?
So there are 6 things here. I can read them off to you here. 1, advise the mayor, the council, and the planning director in matters concerning planning programs. So that one's pretty broad. Review the general plan prepared by the planning director or at the request of the council. The commission shall hold public hearings on such plans and revisions and shall transmit them with its findings and recommendations to the council no later than 180 days after the final public hearing. Review other proposed land ordinances. Sorry, I realize you just asked for the cliff notes and I'm reading the actual sentences, but it is very short. Transmit such ordinances, again, within 120 days. Act as authority in matters relating to coastal zone management law, and adopt rules pursuant to land use ordinances or law. So that's the scope of authority. And I think some of these topics are broad enough to fit in there for sure. And again, let's just take it as we go from today, meaning if you want to do a water workshop next agenda, then I'll let you know if I think that's a problem. But main thing for today is just that we understand it's all in public at these agendized meetings.
So is it not within our authority to question or comment about the Lanai community plan?
Comment or question? No, sure, yes.
And so if we agendize saying that we're going to have this talk story session on the 10 community plan categories, then we're
I
good
think
to
that would
go.
be fine. Yeah, exactly.
And so we could fit in a lot of the other things that are on the documents into one of those 10 categories. Is that accurate?
Yes, that sounds right. Again, I reserve the right to change my mind if I ever do see something on the agenda. I'll certainly let you know. But yeah, I think as long as it's broad enough and as long as it does relate to those things, it could be totally fine.
For example, the first thing, the example that I brought up earlier was population growth, which would fit into possibly chapter on economic development or public facilities and services.
Yes. Perhaps.
Or housing.
Yes. I just have not looked at the general plan anytime recently, so I don't want to speak to it, but yes, that sounds correct.
Yeah, and I think none of the commissioners have looked at our Lanai community plan because it's a huge document, and that's why I brought up at the previous meeting about the planning department every month providing us a status report on each of those 10 categories for that specific reason.
Yeah. So again, I think that would be fine. I just wanted to give you that warning that in some cases it may not be. And very specifically, it was just the first page of the memo that you wrote that really gave me pause and cause for concern, because it spoke a lot about it happening outside of the public eye and in private talk story sessions, which is what I'm really saying cannot happen.
Okay.
So to summarize it, would you be tasked then to use A through G and somehow put it into the 10 categories of the community plan, or is that something that we would look into and be like, oh, we want to do number 4 today or on next meeting or number whatever? I mean,
yeah. So
I'm pretty sure it's
Chair Jima creates the agenda, right? And then it's or oftentimes the secretary prepares it, but determines what's going to be on it in addition to the things that are required to be. And at that point, I would take a look and let you know if I see any issues, any red flags. But other than that, no, I do not create the agenda for these meetings.
So basically, Chair or myself would have to go back and kind of dot it to the community plan and then request for it to be on the agenda.
Yes.
Is that right?
Chair, is that how you typically do that with the secretary? I receive the agenda from the commission secretary, and that's when I review it.
So Nikki, let's work on a possible agenda for this kind of planning meeting for the Planning Commission, and we can, for the rest of the commissioners, maybe you can point out what category, if any, is important to you or that you would want more information about. And once we get all of that information, then we can come up with a draft.
Can I interject, Selena? Can I ask you a question? So if these items are put on the agenda, I mean, the Lanai community plan is already, it's approved, correct? Nothing's stopping anybody from reading it on their own time. So if a certain item was brought up, is that training or is that, I'm not kind of clear, because we would have to work on the agenda. And if it's not in the agenda, as you said, then it can't be discussed. So maybe I think I need some clarification on what the intent is. So like, let's say you bring up population forecast. What is the anticipated discussion? Who are we bringing to this? I mean, we have our long range staff. They can maybe speak about it, but it's a couple paragraphs. So I don't know how much of a presentation they can give based on the census. I don't know if it's changed a whole lot. So I'm just like, kind of help us out, try to, envision like how you want these meetings to go, or is it just sort of like a workaround and opening up topics and then hoping the conversation just sort of spreads to wherever it goes, which from what I understand is not allowed based on the Sunshine Law, which is a lot more robust than it was, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the intent of this talk story planning meeting was, talk story about things, not necessarily have 3 or 4 so-called experts come and talk to us. I wanted to have a more free-flowing discussion to get a sense whether commissioners are informed or uninformed about a specific topic, or whether it's important to them or maybe it's not important to them, and talking about how the discussion may aid or help in us when we deliberate certain potential agenda items coming before us. A lot of us come to these meetings with limited background knowledge on what's before us, and then we get slammed with all this information, and that's somewhat in a vacuum. By us having this overall discussion, then we can say, oh yeah, I remember when we talked about the water and what the capacity of the island is, and so that may help understand an agenda item coming before us, or spur on to ask the applicant or the planning department questions about water. Intent is not to make the planning department work harder for this planning meeting. No, it's basically going to be the responsibility of me, the chair, to facilitate this talk story so we can have a better understanding of what's important as commissioners and what's important for our island.
Yeah, and I'll just say I totally, completely understand and agree with your sentiment. And I think that would be ideal, right? If every single commissioner was, fully informed on every issue that was ever going to, come in front of you guys. But this may not be the forum for that to happen. Commissioners do come with their own personal knowledge. And the purpose of this commission is not to educate. It's not, this isn't the community meeting where everyone talks about water. This is the Lanai Planning Commission, and it does have a specific purpose. And so if that helps you kind of understand a little bit, I again agree with what you're saying, but it is the Planning Commission and not a community meeting.
Can I ask a question about that though? If we all showed up at a community meeting, wouldn't we be in trouble as well? Since we're all commissioners showing up at the same place, talking about something that may be before us? Feels
No,
like
you would not be able to talk to each other about it if it was going to be a matter before you.
So even at a community meeting. So you're saying like this isn't the right forum, but if we did have a community meeting, we would still be held to the same strictures of not talking to one another. And by the very fact that we're all in the same place at the same time, doesn't that create the same issues?
Not if you're not speaking to each other about the issues. I mean,
okay,
you could all go
that's
to a
kind of the point, is so that we could talk to each other about
I
issues,
am
right?
so sorry, and I just
Yeah.
don't make the rules. I think it's
No,
especially difficult in like a really small community too. Like Lanai, it makes it even like a more difficult situation when it comes up on Maui. But I can't even imagine on Lanai, right? It's probably pretty hard not to talk to each other about these things outside of meetings. But unfortunately, that is the Sunshine Law, and it really is just the purpose behind it all. We'll try to remember that it is to be open, transparent, so the public can understand exactly why you made the decisions that you did. And so if you're discussing these things outside of a public meeting, and you all come and vote one way, then the public doesn't know why you made that decision. So I think the intent behind the Sunshine Law is good. It's pure. It's ethics. It's what we actually want, because we don't want. Think about it the other way, right? If commissioners were all developers and they were talking behind the scenes and going to presentations on how development is great, and then came back and voted yes on everything, it'd be the same problem. We wouldn't like that either. So the intent, I think, is correct. It's just that it does become difficult. I understand everything that you all are saying, but we do just have to be careful not to violate the Sunshine Law. That's all. And again, as far as today, what's on the agenda is just discussing this on communications, and that we have done. So if you guys kind of want to move on and take it from there, Chair Gino, when you do want to put things on the agenda, we can revisit it as it comes up. That's all I can suggest for today, and I don't have any further comments, but please let me know if you guys have any more questions.
So as far as today's communication list, I'm feeling and hearing that it should be deferred and renamed in a future meeting. But our agenda items are picked a month before for the next agenda. So like I just want to make sure we understand correctly. Whereas like if it's within the scope of the community plan's 10 categories, we are able to request that. I don't know if you call it a training, a talk story, or whatnot, but just be like, we want to discuss and review number 1 of the community plan at the next planning commission meeting. Is that sufficient? Or
Yeah, and maybe Danny, if you want to chime in again on how, or if that's I don't know, even doable from your department's like standpoint in terms of giving those presentations, or
Yeah, I think we can have a meeting, probably with you said Butch and Vice Chair and yourself and Anna, and then sort of work through this instead of trying to work it out through this meeting. But I think a key takeaway is essentially, my understanding of the Sunshine Law, and like you said, Selena, luckily Lanai is small enough that you don't kind of deal with the downside to the Sunshine Law, but on Maui Island, it's like there's so much lawsuits flying around all the time, planning commission decisions constantly getting challenged and so forth. And so we have to be very careful. And in layman's terms, the way I see the Sunshine Law is basically you have to make sure that the public is aware of what you are going to talk about in the agenda. And so there's not much room for deviation. So you can put an item on it, but if that conversation starts deviating and a member of the public says, hey, I had no idea you were going to talk about this because the agenda didn't allude to it, that's where we get into trouble. And that's why I'm sort of concerned, that we have to be very careful with what the commission does discuss and then how we word it in the agenda. I don't know if you want to add to that, Selena.
No, that's right. I agree with what you just said.
I totally understand and agree with it. And I think that's important for the community too, where if it's posted where it's like, hey, we're reviewing, or not reviewing, but revisiting the community plan. We're gonna be discussing or, looking over section 1 posted to the public and whatnot. And then that's when we have why we have Corp Council and you guys on to make sure we're on task and not deviate and, not break any sunshine laws. But I think for the community too, I mean, it's a gateway to maybe get us more commissioners when they know like, hey, this is in the community plan, because I can guarantee you half the island don't know what the community plan is. It's a massive document. And I think posting it, having it up, like, hey, it's posted on Facebook, it's on Pulama's 96763, like planning commission is having this. It has, I don't know if it has the agenda, but I mean, like, I think it's helpful for me. I mean, I would like to have it reviewed, all 10 categories. And if we have questions, get the proper people to come and present and explain and etc. and it be open to the public. That's where we're going with this. Is just, I understand how you guys say, oh, you read it and overlook and look it over at your own time. But, it's like you're at work all day and then you come home and then you got kids, but you got planning commission set up once a month. And then, it's like a refresher, a review for everyone, because I'm really new to this and would appreciate it. So I guess for now we would defer it, but correct me if I'm wrong, do I open this up for any public testimony at this time?
Yes, if you're ready to move on, yeah.
So I mentioned it, it will probably be deferred until we have a meeting with Danny, Selena, and Chair in regards to how we would word it on the next for an agenda item. But we will open it up for public testimony now. Leilani, is there anyone signed up to testify?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, I do have Kikipua.
Okay, Kikipua, you got the floor.
Aloha, Commissioners. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide public testimony. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but CWORM does hold an annual water workshop, and CWORM is the body that governs the water on Lanai. It is next week, or not next week, sorry, next month, December 16th. It has been posted on Facebook, Lanai 96763 calendar, at the post office, at Pine Isle Market, and at the service station. It was also distributed to the planning department and water department at the county of Maui. So I encourage all of you, that would be a great opportunity to have CWORM speak directly to you, but that is a water workshop that they do hold annually. And so it's next month. And I just thank Selena for her guidance in letting us know what the authority of the Planning Commission is. I know some of these topics are pretty hefty, and the community plan is a hefty document. I encourage discussion and want to ensure that the planning department brings in the experts that are that can help facilitate these types of discussions, because if it's just talking amongst yourselves, you might not be able to have the guidance of the experts that can help inform you on these pretty interesting topics. And I thank you for allowing public testimony. Mahalo.
Can I ask a question of Kikipua? Is the CWORM training, which I've done and I thought it was fantastic, is it Lanai specific, the one you're talking about, or is it about Maui County?
No, it is Lanai specific, and that's why they do it annually for Lanai. It's Lanai specific.
Great. I strongly recommend it. I thought it was super helpful.
Thank you.
Chair, I see your hand up, Chair.
Yeah, just want to make a correction on the Commission on Water Resource Management's meeting in December. It is not an annual water workshop. What they're doing is they're holding this meeting specific to the effort by Lanaians for Sensible Growth back in the 90s, I believe, to have Lanai be designated as a water management area. And at that time, what that would mean, if Lanai was designated, the Commission on Water Resource Management would manage Lanai's water, not the Lanai Water Company. However, at the time that they held the meeting for this designation, it was denied. However, as part of the denial, the Commission on Water Resource Management was supposed to come to Lanai every October to revisit the issue. And Commission on Water Resource Management hasn't been to Lanai in at least over a decade on this specific issue. It's not a water workshop like we've had in the past. This is specific to the legal proceeding that was initiated way back in the 90s. I spoke to the person from Commission on Water Resource Management last Saturday at the DLNR meeting, and I encouraged him to have the meeting on island in person like they used to, as opposed to Zoom. But currently, right now, it's scheduled for a Zoom meeting.
All right, mahalo, Chair. Anyone else? Any more testimony, Leilani?
Thank you, Vice Chair. That's it. No one else has signed up.
And I know
Thank
Roxanne was having audio problems. Roxanne, anybody there? No one here at the district office. All right. Okay, so next item on agenda is the director's report, and I guess I will turn this over to Danny. Danny, you there?
Nikki, Sally has her
Yeah,
hand
I
up.
see Sally's hand up.
I'm sorry, I see her now. I'm sorry, I had to scroll. Go ahead, Sally. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I have a question for Danny and Selena. Is Mike Hopper still with Corporation Counsel?
He is,
Yes?
yes.
Okay. If you could check with him, please. He was our corporation counsel back when we had a number of educational workshops, and they went on for months at a time. They were agendized, they were published. They were not addressing a specific item. Many of them were water workshops. And if there is a change in the provision to the Sunshine Law that prevents that from happening, I'd like to know what it is specifically, please.
Sure. You know, I actually did talk to him yesterday about this. And he expressed the same concerns that I did. Whether that was a change in the law, I don't know, but I'll check with him tomorrow when I see him and let you know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sally. So Danny, can go ahead with the director's report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So for the director's report, item D1 is a completed Lanai applications report. And basically there is two projects. First is a change in zoning for Mickey Basin. Basically, that's just letting the commission know that it did go to council and it was approved by council. And of course, you folks reviewed it maybe a year and a half ago. The next project, I know there's about 4 permits here, I believe, but it's all for the same project. So there's a special management area approval. There is a shoreline setback approval, and then an environmental assessment exemption. And that's for Palama Lanai project at the Hulupoi Beach Park, which involved a number of items, relatively minor, basically sewer manhole removal, and then I believe raising it. Keiki was on the call, she can correct me if I'm wrong. And then the removal of 3 dead monkey pod trees, and these trees were determined to be dead by an arborist, and also approval just for ongoing maintenance operations at the park. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Danny. I just have a quick question. So like it says ongoing maintenance operations at the park. So like what, like that means that they wouldn't have to come in and permit for anything. What kind of maintenance? Because I see it through the 4 times or 3 or 4 times on here.
Aloha, Vice Chair Alboro. I think Danny was asking for my assistance, so I'll jump in. Yes, so the ongoing maintenance is landscaping, fixing bathroom urinals, fixing showers, replacing barbecues, fixing picnic tables, cleaning the roads. It's basically all ongoing maintenance at Hulupoi Beach Park is subject to a SMX. And so that's what we applied for. And so we had to go through that process. This was a long process. It was almost 22 months actually to get this through.
Thank you for the clarification.
It's only for 5 years, just FYI. So we have to apply again to clean the beach park.
5 years. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Danny on the director's report?
Yeah, Nikki.
Chair, your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, Danny, could you explain, because I know Pulamo submitted the special management area minor permit for basically to deal with all the effects of that flooding we had in the beach park, but there are 4 categories from that single permit. Could you just help us understand why it's listed 4 times?
Sorry, are you going off of the approved projects list?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so as Kekipo mentioned, it did take a while. And the reason why it's a fairly complex area. So first of all, it's in the SMA. And so that's why you have the SMX permit. That's initially the permit that you would apply for. After a planner reviews it, then we determine what exact approvals that you need. So SMX comes in, and then of course, we determined that this was going to be an exemption. It meets the criteria for an exemption. So on the last page, that's the permit that's listed as SM7. That's the SMA exemption for the project. The park is obviously also within the shoreline setback area or along the shoreline. So therefore you need a shoreline setback approval. So that's the SSAD 2024-00025. And then the EAE, there's Hawaii revised statutes has different triggers for requiring an environmental assessment. One of them is when you do work along the shoreline. And so this project triggered that. However, there are exemptions for certain items, and then what Kulama Lanai is proposing to do is an exempt item because it's essentially maintenance, right? It's not like building a huge, whatever manufacturing plant or something. So that's why, there's basically 3 approvals for this one project because the multiple layers of regulation that there is for projects along the beach.
Okay, thanks, Andy. So as Kekipo was saying, the planning department's approval of these 4 things gives them the okay to provide ongoing maintenance for the next 5 years should anything like this come up again. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else, commissioners, any questions regarding the director's report? All right, seeing none. The status of boards and commission vacancy on Lanai Planning Commission. Is that Danny?
Yeah, so we did speak to I believe her name is Corey Lee Vicens from the mayor's office, and she's in charge with essentially recruiting or finding people to serve on the Lanai Planning Commission. From what I recall, she basically said there was nobody yet. I don't know if there's issues with finding people. I don't know, Anna, did you get an update on that? I feel like there was something else that I'm missing here, but thanks.
Thank you, Danny. Essentially, we've not received any update on new applicants having been submitted for the INB recommendation. And furthermore, there seems to be a general new issue with INB approval authority that the administration is working on clarifying and potentially fixing. And I can go more into that, but that is kind of an aside. But basically, at this juncture, we don't have new applicants at this stage.
Thank you, Anna. Any commissioners, comments, questions?
Yeah, Nikki.
Chair?
Yeah, just want to let everybody know I have one person that I'm going to be speaking with to see if they might be interested.
That's wonderful, Chair. Thank you.
And then I'm also in contact with our INB commissioner here on Lanai.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, I think Anna, you're still up, or is it Danny for the status of the in-person meetings?
That is my item as well. Thank you, Vice Chair. So I'm happy to report that the Maui Planning Department is planning a site visit on January 18th to Lanai, and we are in the works to schedule several appointments, several site visits, which does include the Lanai Senior Center and the First Hawaiian Bank building that First Hawaiian Bank has generously offered to donate. And we are in the works with our Department of Corporation Counsel to acquire that. I know that's an aside, but just generally speaking, the Department of Planning is conducting a on-site inspection to see what the technical needs are to basically actually bring those things up. So one of the delays was, of course, the Microsoft 365 transition for our IT team. We need a secure network in the senior center in order to conduct these meetings. And so part of what we're going to try to do is see if now that that is complete, they're still working out a few kinks in terms of just little bugs that have been popping up from what I understand, but we're working with our IT team to set up a remote a hybrid meeting location, and the staffing issue will need to be addressed, of course, but that at least for an update, we're trying to visit Lanai, see what the actual needs are, see what's possible with what we have now, and work with our other partners in the administration to get this done. Yeah.
That is awesome news. Thank you for that. Looking forward to it. Let's see here. I guess last thing is Leilani, agenda items for our next meeting.
Hi, Chair. I could handle that. So for the next agenda, which would be on December 18th, obviously Greg's going to come back with the amendment to, or the proposed amendment to the parking code. We also have a presentation by the Maui Emergency Management Agency. And they're going to do a presentation on their priorities, operations, procedures, etc. And then we're going to have obviously a conversation with the chair, vice chair, etc. regarding the items that we were discussing earlier. And so potentially, some training or something regarding the community plan, depending on how that conversation goes. And that's about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair Gima, any additions, remarks in regards to the agenda for next meeting?
Not right now that I can think of. Thank you.
All right. So our next meeting is set for December 18th. Is there any commissioners not available to make that meeting? I can't see everyone. Everybody okay, we'll be here. All right, so again, please mark your calendars, December 18th, 5 o'clock, our next meeting. And I guess I will adjourn the meeting. Yep, good. Did I miss anything?
Right. Thanks, Nikki.
Yep. All right.
Great job,
Thank
Nick.
you, guys.